Good afternoon. My name is Susan Doyle and I will be a facilitator today. I would like to welcome you to this Lean Construction Ireland webinar presented by Tim Jolly, Senior Chartered Civil and Structural Engineer with Arcadis. The title of this webinar is Lean Thinking, Big Results, Transforming Programme Mobilisation. If you have a question, please type in the question box and we'll consolidate and ask Tim after the presentation. If there are any questions that we don't get answered during the webinar, we will follow up by email afterwards. The speaker for today is Tim Jolly. Tim is a globally respected Senior Chartered Civil and Structural Engineer and Programme Manager with over 30 years of international experience spanning industries such as semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, data centres, civil infrastructure, mining and petrochemicals. He has successfully led complex multidisciplinary projects across the globe, delivering innovative solutions to the most challenging environments. Currently a global programme management consultant, Tim specialises in transforming programme mobilisation by applying lean methodologies to optimise processes, systems and talent. A recognised subject matter expert, he has helped organisations overcome critical challenges like resource scarcity, talent retention and operational inefficiencies, particularly in mission-critical sectors. He is known not only for his deep industry expertise, but also for his ability to captivate audiences as a skilled storyteller. He uses real-world examples and practical insights to connect with executives and upper management, breaking down complex concepts into actionable strategies. In this session, Tim will share proven methods and success stories from his 5 years of programme mobilisation excellence, offering tools to unlock value, reduce inefficiencies and gain a competitive edge. I'll now hand you over to Tim to present his presentation. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks so much for that. Yeah, thanks, and thank you, RCI, for allowing me to speak today. It's quite exciting. It's a great time for us to bring this up because we've been operating the mobilisation team for 5 years, right? And so now it's a nice time to summarise what we've achieved up to date, right? Now, the topic is obviously lean thinking, big results and transformation of program mobilisation. I have a picture there. In the past, I've loved skiing. I've skied. I lived in France and so on. And I used to go to one of the most extreme ski locations in Europe. It's and I don't know if anyone knows or has seen this place before, but it's called Le Grave La Mage, which is in French is the serious or the death, right? And it's quite a daunting place to be. You're looking at one of the largest mountains in France. You're sitting there, standing at the base, looking at this towering mountain, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is all off-piste. What's going to happen? What's going to happen today?" And there's crevasses. People have gone missing and everything. But what happens is that you get to the bottom, and there's this very serene lift system. It has 5 lifts up and 5 lifts down, and everything seems to be organised. So it's an efficient, streamlined system that allows you to get to the top so that you can have your big day ahead. And I sort of see this as a little bit like mobilisation. It's the systems are there. If they're all organised and methodical and efficient, then it allows you to put your focus into what's next, right? And that's where we are over the last 5 years. We've been working on the high-tech industries and building up a mobilisation system to allow people to kickstart their programs with less stress and get started on that first day well, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about the next hour is how we've got what we've done in the last 5 years to build up a mobilisation system, which is a little bit different to what the normal status quo is, and how it affects our mobilisation and our programs, right? So what we're going to do is today I'm going to introduce myself and the team. I'm going to talk a little bit about the why. Why do we use mobilisation? Why is it important? It's efficient, reduce risks and so on, and enabling teams to hit the ground running, right? Then I'm going to talk about the lean, right? The lean LCI and the lean, and we've provided a number of papers in the past and how we have looked at the current system, how things work at the start of programs and how we can improve them along the way. We'll go through some of the results we've done over the last couple of years. We have put some papers in, and they're very clearly there. Results we've gained from hard work and lean, I think lean enthusiasm, and what we've got from that, right? And then some of the benefits, for the executives out there, right? It's important, risky environments and where there's a relative scarcity of resources and projects seem to be growing and logistically more challenging. It's, there's a lot to be said by starting projects up early and on time and upfront. I'll then go through questions. So if you guys have any questions to ask, I'm sure you'll have questions because, like, I could speak all day, right? I could speak all day on this topic. I'm very passionate about it. I love it. I could speak all day, but there is questions that you may have about your systems, your processes, inherent questions you may have, like, that I may be able to answer that's not in the presentation, right? So feel free to let them go out there and have a go, right? Right, so we have a program, a development group, and Arcadis was subsequently, we were originally, before that, we were DPS group. And DPS group, if you go back through the history of DPS group, it was quite an agile, adaptable company, smaller in size, but that meant they were all adaptable and looking for opportunities to improve things, to be competitive, right, in this environment. So I'm part of that team. Maria's part of that team, and that program development group looks at opportunities to improve systems and programs, right? And we work at part of the executive office of DPS Arcadis in the Dublin office, and look for opportunities to improve mobilisation of many different projects, right? So look, a bit what about me, as presented before, I'm 30 years civil structural engineer. I love improving systems. I love people, and I love getting the most out of people and driving them. So for such a job, such as program improvement or mobilisation, this is an ideal job for me. I actually love it. Every day I'm making improvements and differences that will stand the test of time, I'm hoping, right? And then we have Maria O'Toole, who's where I'd be, I suppose, the visionary type guy. She's more the doer, the action. She is highly impressive in terms of speed and her enthusiasm for lean and improving systems and making improvements to form systems and centralizing stuff. She's fantastic. And together we work as there's a synergy between us, absolute synergy between us, and we love what we do, right? And and that's where we are. So this is why we're doing what we do. We love what we do, and that's why we're absolutely privileged today to be sharing some of this with you. Right, so the big question we ask, you probably ask, what is mobilisation? Now, is it clear what mobilisation is? I mean, we even confused in Arcadis with we have mobility, which is transportation, and then we have mobilisation, which is the mobilisation of projects. So, it's important to understand what mobilisation is to us, and it's important to know how it can improve the whole process. It is a circular life cycle. We start off with if you start with forecasting of a program, then we have attraction of program, attracting people to the type of company we have, or the type of role we have, or the type of program we have. We then resource. How do we gain the people we need, and so on. We then who do we need to have stakeholders to get the best people in this environment? We then onboard the people, make sure it's as streamlined as possible and as less wasted as possible. We then engage the people. There's lots of information regarding engagement at the moment, and if you don't engage your resources or your employees or your staff within the first 3 months, then they're likely to look for the door quite quickly. So that engagement is very important. That makes them feel part of the project straight away. Obviously, there with environments at the moment, there's training too. You need to train people. You need to retain people. How do you retain people? Because every time we don't retain a person, we have to go and find another one. And then there's demobilize. In a cycle, there's always projects or programs or companies that grow, and then they all wind down. And the most important thing of that is to demobilise properly, make sure that the opportunities to move to the next thing and to the lessons learned are kept going. But the most important benefits of mobilisation is really cost saving, improving forecasting, reducing the risks of the programs, and so on. So that's what mobilising is to me and to Maria. And everyone may have a different view, but that's what we are about, is removing the waste and making sure it's fluid. So why does it manage? Why is it important to executives and program managers, right? You need to ask yourself that question. Let's have a think about that. It's a critical phase for the project. So, what does it mean to us? How does it, and I'd like you to think about it, how can it be improved? What is the biggest challenges it face? I mean, we look there at the strategy diagrams there. This is at the level of strategy. How do we improve what we do around so it keeps the risks of the programs down? And I need to ask you to also think about yourself. What are some of the biggest challenges your programs face with mobilisation as you understand it, right? Now, I've had a past history as a civil and structural engineer and given great responsibility. And, why do I absolutely see enthusiasm and I'm enthusiastic about mobilisation, because just think about this for a sec. I had a big project in Israel. Now, we did all the things right. We had to forecast the right amount of people and so on. But as projects grew in real life, programming was reduced by half, allowed us to not maybe look at all the risks that were the change that were going to happen along the way. We had new reports coming. We had to design a semiconductor plant for seismic conditions when initially there wasn't. Just the project kept growing in scope and so on. When you're busy firefighting, reporting to executives, trying to run a team who's under pressure with work environment, you really don't keep an eye on what's ahead. You're looking, you're at the head in the weeds, you're feeling the pain, you're not looking ahead. And so what happens is you're not planning. And what did I do? I basically I think I had 76 or 78 people working for me at that time. Probably should have had 110, right? And that was because I was change cycle was coming. I was losing. I hadn't kept up with the resources that would need to do the job properly, right? So on that role in Israel, I'll explain what my role was. I was program manager in terms of CSA for the whole site. Now we're talking about a 200,000 square foot class 10 clean room. Factory, fab, or like semiconductor facility. We had cubs, fabs, office buildings, multi-story car parks and everything. It ended up being that I ended up getting stressed. I got so stressed. I remember going one time I went to sleep. I woke up the next 2 days later, just overwhelmed with work. And sometimes you have to get off the Ferris wheel a little bit and have a look at what's going on to fix. So at that stage, under that pressure, with that type of turnaround and those type of special matter experts I needed in those sort of fields, I had to call favours. Abroad. And the company had to pay a significant amount of money to bring people from Malaysia or Singapore or the US to try and help it out. So in terms of mobilisation, when I was also supposed to be recruiting for my roles and my teams, I still had other work to do. I was firefighting and so on. So for me, it's very important what happens with mobilisation, because people have other jobs to do, and mobilisation is the most important thing you can have, is the right people in your team to do the right roles at the right time. but the reality is you also are trying to look after other roles and responsibilities you have at the time, right? So I'd like to just reflect a little bit on some of the systems and processes you are doing or are delivering and using. Are they efficient, or is there anything that could hold you back, right? So again, we want to start all our jobs with the right resources at the right place at the right time. And this example I had originally, it illustrated all the risks and so on. And this is why I thoroughly understand the value of what I do now, and which is very important, right? So some of the challenges you face with traditional mobilisation is, again, as I illustrated there, reactive hiring. Reactive hiring. My forecasting wasn't accurate, or it was accurate, but it wasn't accurate to the changes that were coming. Right. There was you have generally inconsistent, time-consuming onboarding processes, right? So they could be efficient, they could be lean. There's people, the last thing you want is someone to rock on up at the office and no one knows they're arriving. These sort of things. There's lack of talent retention strategies. You get the people in on the site, and specifically, I'm talking about site programs where they're not in the office. There's not a HR manager next to them all the time. These sort of things need to be looked after, right? You have fragmented communication systems. People are, there's CVs going into people's inboxes and they're not being transferred or not looked at. You've got relayed information coming from different, you've got inefficient workflows. People are, the systems aren't systematic. They're not built up for mobilisation generally. And so we're using emails and so on to do this. There's lots and lots of opportunities out there that we've found that you can improve the process to go through, right? The reactive hiring is an example of what I did in Israel. And that makes it almost impossible to get the type of people you want at the right time, right? Especially for the right price. So as an executive, it's a big deal when you're paying over the top for people because of timelines, right? So some of the challenge we have there at the moment is obviously getting the people there, having the process to get the people in there, but then there's outside influence at the moment, and that's at the moment we're in a market where there's a relative scarcity of resources, right? And in fact, talent risk has been identified as one of the leading issues faced by executives and CEOs alike across Europe and the globe, right? In fact, we've got a number of concerns coming up in terms of where are we going to get resources from to satisfy the clients, to satisfy these major projects. In semiconductor alone, the growth with the chip packs and so on, we have got a growth rate like 16% per year, even more in Europe, right? Because as Europe and the US are trying to catch up with the global requirements for semiconductors. In data centers, we're growing there. We've got some stats there. We've got 10% year-on-year data center growth, right? And pharmaceuticals 5 to 6%, right? And infrastructure 6 to 7%, right? So if you combine all those type of industries recruiting from the same pot, it's going to be a significant stresses on resourcing and getting the right people for the right roles globally, right? And so this is something that is an addition to the processes of getting the right people in the roles that we want in our teams and programs, right? And so even Deloitte now has just said that in recent surveys, most executives, up to 75%, are identifying talent scarcity as their top risk, right, over the next 5 years, right? So not only talent scarcity into who do we get to build up these 10%, 14% roles, but also, how do we obviously retain? That's not even including the people retaining the ones we have at the moment. So the question is how do you face these resource challenges? What we've tried to do is look at, and what I'm going to do now is discuss about how we looked at them and went through the lean process through all the systems we have and continuously improved over the last 5 years the mobilisation process at Arcadis, right? In advanced systems, right? Advanced. So if you were looking at lean itself, and we're all lean practitioners here, right? You know, lean addresses always maximising value, minimising waste, improving collaboration, right, and enhancing the flexibility of what we have there, right? It's always about continuously improving and looking for inefficiencies in systems. And this aligns very, very much so with obviously the construction industry, but also the mobilisation, right? Mobilisation. So if you're looking at mobilisation, we are constantly, you know, like I said before, forecast was on the example in Israel. If I'd forecast that I needed extra people or I had redundancy, you know, I would be in a better place. We need to standardise the onboarding. You know, there's lots and lots of systems there to be cleaned up and improved, and it's almost like a manufacturing line. Each time a person is recruited, it's manufacturing line. So that if that doesn't get better, then what are we doing, right, as engineers, right? So the other thing we need to do is improve our engagement and retain this talent we have. You know, is there opportunities to improve the engagement and retain the talent? You know, and continuously we're always got to clean and shine use the 5 S's to clean shine what we're doing around our mobilisation process, because it's every time we take someone in, it's like a manufacturing line, we're redoing it. So if you're looking at some of the inefficiencies currently in traditional mobilisation systems, right, in the traditional ones, in the traditional sense, and so on, you know, we have, we're always proactive to workforce planning. Again, you know, you need to be able to proactively put those, what do we require, who do we require, where we get it from, how do we best satisfy it, especially the SMEs, which we have a lot of experience in. The SMEs, you know, certain recruitment agencies have to be particular for these type of knowledge. It's opening the umbrella to those areas. You know, forecasting is a very big deal for mobilisation, because people don't want to hand over the information right too early, and so for us to get the systems in place and the best opportunity to get the right people in at the right time at the right cost, you know, we need to have the forecasting up front and plan ahead. Our onboarding process, streamlining it, making sure that people are that the processes are there, the IT systems are there, the onboarding, the IP, the laptops, everything is all there. That's streamline that onboarding, making sure it's all engaged and efficient. The last thing you want is someone to turn up and work on a Monday or whatever, and there's no laptop available, right? And it wasn't communicated right. With the 10% with talent retention programs, you know, I know it's a bugbear of mine, and you know, but I always thought, geez, you know, we work so hard to get the right people in the right place at the right time, and then they don't stay, right? And if they don't stay, why do they not stay? And so retention is a big, and especially with programs. So people leave the office, they go out into a big program. Programs run themselves, and sometimes we forget that people have different needs, right? Everyone has different needs. So there's lots of opportunities there to improve, address the inefficiencies of the existing systems. The integration of the communication platforms. You know, how do we communicate with people? Who do we communicate with? How do we keep people informed if say, for instance, a resource is ready to sign up and tomorrow he decides he's not coming, or he's sick or whatever? How do we keep that information going? Now, Lean's been great because we can cut waste, we reduce, we look at the systems, we look at the process, and we'll explain it a little bit later. We've done a number of articles on the lean construction, how we've removed some of the waste along the way, right? And that's been important for us too. And the knowledge transfer, the most important of all things, is that programs or projects or mobilisation start and finish, and that there's a continuous improvement of that the knowledge and the learnings are lost, right? And then there's obviously a site maintenance with opportunities to improve the way we do things, make sure we have the meetings and we're making the stakeholder meetings and we're informing people of when people are coming, what the challenges are, what the market's doing. These are the sort of things that help us optimize site maintenance. We have welfare systems. Are there desks there? Is there software? Everything. This is all stuff that allows us to improve. And there's always, and you can sit back and look at your own organisation. There's always opportunities to improve things, right? So our global mobilisation framework is initially was to remove the burden, right? It's to remove the burden on the hiring managers and the recruiters and the candidates. It's to pull the process, right? So lean is all about pulling the process. We are all about pulling the process for mobilisation. It's because we are dedicated to the knowledge of what people want, when they want it, how they want it, and how we deliver it, right? And so what we do is end-to-end candidate management. We mobilise, we use a stakeholder management, we manage all the stakeholders, and that would be a major part of our job is stakeholder management and relationship building and so on. We have request management, meaning, some of the big issues we would have, you would have is that, you go through the whole process and then a PO for the required resource, doesn't get approved, and 2 or 3 days you lose momentum. People actually get nervous by momentum loss during recruitment processes, and therefore they get hesitant, right? And to keep that process moving, you need to keep the forms streamlined, approval of roles, who needs to approve anyone. We have transfer requests, keep the politics out of involved when we're moving people on or moving on to other roles. There's a systematic process to do that, right? We manage the process in terms of transfer requesting of people. Referral management, how do we refer open roles? How do we strategically recruit in terms of these type of a special role, or if it's construction or design or logistics or schedulers or planners or EHS? Who's the best place to help us find those resources when we do it, right? Managing the people, making sure that they're engaged, the managers are aware they're coming, the tracking systems of the administration, the job specifications. There were some of the things that we've continuously improved in attracting the right candidates for the role. The right job specification has to be out there, and that takes working, right? And then the interview process of late, we've been improving the interview process significantly, and the value has been incredible in terms of homework before interviews, right? It's made significant. So what we've tried to do is remove so that the hiring manager can get on with the job that he's being paid to do, or her paid to do, and is best at, and then we help pull the process in terms of getting the right people on the right time for them on site. Right. So our scope is in terms of what we do in mobilisation has grown. I mean, we've had guidelines in terms of what we do. We're aiming for operational excellence. We're aiming to improve the policies, and there's breakdowns of policies in terms of looking at the policies in terms of contracts and so on. Value alignment with the strategy, right? So, who do you need to get when, and even giving advice. So people like advice in terms of critical candidates, in terms of processes, payments. How do you do training, right? The training is another thing, getting people on board. In this environment with the relative scarcity of resources, you may not get the exact person you want every time. And we give advice on whether that person is good enough, or we think opportunities that, may not be the perfect person right time, but with the following training sessions, you can gap fill them into the role for the future, or grow them as leaders, right? Compliance in terms of making sure that we're immigration for, and I would say immigration more for external, for overseas projects such as Malaysia or something like that, tax compliances for like the Italy's or whatever, ensuring that that is abided by. But sometimes tax can be another thing. It could be an attraction, right? It could be attraction to a certain countries and so on. So we make sure we understand all these things. In terms of talent management, we talk about attracting, developing, retention, and transitioning instead of demobiling. Sometimes we're transitioning from one project to the next, and that may be what the candidate wants. It may be what the projects need, right? And also, what we also do is another, I suppose, role and responsibility in our hat is to make sure we providing the KPIs, ensuring the executive report outs are done, looking at look-aheads in terms of forecasting, looking at business development plan forecasting, what's coming up, and so on. To get to this level over the last 5 years, we've really started to refine the tools and become a bit more streamlined in terms of efficiency of tools that we use. And some of these were highlighted there. I mean, we use forms for requesting resources, transferring resources, even if people are leavers or whatever. We use Excel every day. Everyone uses that. We use Teams more and more so in terms of interviewing, conversations with resourcing companies, agencies. I mean, we would have at certain stages be working with 20 resourcing companies, and that's got huge advantages. When you are looking for those particular type of people. We use Power BI to automate some of the power output. We use smart sheets to help our management of tasks and so on. We use a tracker RMS system, which is our centralized, I suppose, hotspot or centralized system for holding on to CVs or setting up new jobs, setting up roles, setting up new roles along the way. We use DocuSign a lot for getting contracts signed, for passing over requests for movements or transfers or whatever. In the meantime, we've also used created a group of SOPs, work instructions to, and again, that's for sustainability of the processes that we've invented or improved along the way, is that so that we can hand them on to the next people along or even to use them abroad. We have mobilisation managers globally, and the systems that we've adopted here are getting transferred abroad. And just lately, obviously, AI, right? So AI is helping us. It could be looking at the moment, asset management in terms of skills matrices of teams, looking at candidates, helping refine job descriptions or whatever. AI is extremely valuable for what we do, right? Especially when we're continuously improving the process along the way. We've grown to initially we were put together to build large programs in terms of semiconductor industry or to build larger programs, 160 plus people. But we've also now become a mobilisation service almost, right? So we can help different departments, different groups to help get their resources they need. And one size doesn't fit all. Sometimes they want to do more themselves, and sometimes they haven't got the capacity to do it themselves. So they're really lean on the mobilisation team to make sure resourcing or recruitment is successful. So we've become SMEs in this industry, and we now can look at resourcing strategies. If something's not working, how do we look ahead? How can we plan to have the right stakeholders involved for us? We have onboarding strategies. How do we onboard, making sure people are happy with joining Arcadis on our programs, making sure that there's training available for them when they arrive. They don't feel like they feel they're competent, right, to do their job. These are the sort of things. Engaging, the retaining. Retaining is a big thing. The forecasting is a huge thing, because forecasting is if we can understand what the the requirements are within a month, 2 months. For instance, mobilisation, it can't happen tomorrow, right? So you need to have a month to interview. We can do it pretty quick now. We can, when we want to, we can move very quickly. But to get the systems in place, depending on how the complexity of the roles are too, right? There's you have very difficult roles which are almost impossible to find. That needs more strategy. That needs more stakeholders to be involved and to look at it into getting those type of roles. Forecasting helps us do that, right? It helps us also if you've got teams on the site, to work out which teams are working busy. Look ahead 6 weeks' time, these guys are going to be red hot, but these guys are cooling down in terms of program. And maybe there's an opportunity, instead of recruiting more people, to train and transfer people from another department to take blasts, right? And having those sort of skills are very important, but also very useful for mobilisation, right? Engaging and retaining the talent, people, everyone, like I said before, everyone wants something different. Say, for instance, maybe I want to learn more. Some people want to earn more money. No, everyone wants to earn more money, but everyone wants something else. Someone wants a career improvement and so on. So it's about having those sort of retention programs to cater for everyone. It doesn't take super amounts of effort to do it. What it does take is stakeholders to be on board, and we can help with that, right? The training development side, the demobilising service. I mean, in terms of demobilising, every program or project finishes one day or slows down. And therefore, it's about looking at what's the assets you have in terms of the team and the program and their specialist skills, and where can we best place them for the next role within the company. And so on. That's something that we can wind down. Again, with forecasting, allows it to do it a little bit better, right, and smooth. And the most important thing is also that everyone leaves feeling good about what their experience with the company and or that they're or that project, right? That project, because they may be moving to another project, right? Again, we continuously have improved systems, and we also do a lot of executive reporting, right? So Maria is a bit of an expert at that, and she does some pretty nifty executive reports in terms of look aheads, and this allows the business development and the business units to understand what's going on, right? So some of the projects we've done over the last 5 years, we've had some significant improvements along the way, right? So we've had 20% in reduction in overall mobilisation time, right? And we put that's in one of the lean construction articles that originate, and I'll refer to that quite soon, right? We've also had some. We've reduced handoffs, right, significantly by looking at the process flow and reducing the handoffs. In terms of resourcing handoffs, agency handoffs, and so on. We've also reduced our mobilisation handoffs. We've refined down the job descriptions. I mean, we had significant job descriptions 5 years ago. These are now getting a little bit more adaptable and improved, right? One is to try and get people more attractive to the roles, and so that people understand what the role is actually about, so that the roles and responsibilities can be agreed, right? We've reduced the stakeholders in terms of I suppose hiring managers and the handoffs into HR and all this stuff. But we've also on about turn, we've increased stakeholders when it comes down to more tricky roles. Different agencies have different specialist skills, and we've enhanced that for the satisfaction of satisfying the roles that we require, right, and getting them on time. In terms of roles, approval, and so on, to get executives to approve roles so we can get contracts out, we've significantly knocked that down because we've automated the service, and all the information is available for executive to make a decision very, very quickly because it's all packaged, right? we've significantly reduced the hiring manager. I mean, we talked about that before. The stress about my project was you're embedded in the weeds. You've got work to do. We've significantly reduced the hiring manager's time on candidates. Now, certain specific roles or specialist roles, the hiring manager may want to play a bigger part in. But on the major programming roles, we can generally do it a lot with them. Very little involvement from the hiring manager because all the work is done pre. Right? And the billability gains, obviously, there's significant increases. I mean, that stat there is from a tool install program, but it's pretty consistent that we've improved the billability gains per each placement. Right? And this is all through automation. Right? So, like I said before, we've done a number of lean. This is where we are now, but to get there was a lot of little lean projects along the way, and we've actually issued a few case studies to lean construction over the years, and these projects helped us get there. The first one we did was a lean study in 2022. If you look at the code there or snap the code, you can go directly to Lean Construction Ireland Book of Cases for 2022, and it talks a little bit about what we did there, right? So this was probably the meat of the initial mobilisation process, how to get things more efficient and so on. So when you got to remember when 2020, 2021, we just had COVID, right? We had the largest construction project in Ireland's history out in Leaflet. And that put significant pressures on the getting the right resources for the projects, right? So that was one of the big challenges we had. We had onboarding program where there was opportunities there to reduce. We were 17 weeks onboarding timelines, right? And you think 17 weeks is a long time, but that's 17 weeks for someone to have the competency and be in the role and be trained up for a particular role, right? And then we were overburdening hiring managers. They were busy. They were already working significantly, and we had to build the programs up. So these were some significant challenges we faced along the way. And what we did is we looked at how can we make this leaner. So some of the solutions we got there were we use K's and Jushuken, which is for those who have used it before, it's about stakeholder management, right? And a lot of our roles we do in mobilisation is stakeholder management. So it's important you like people. It's important you understand. It's important that you have no problem talking to people because it's a significant part of our role. And then we obviously use DMAIC to review the systems and the processes. Now, some of the things we reduced some of the job descriptions from 228 to 146 that year, right? That, these are just, again, typical company piling on. Everyone had a new job. They would write a new job description and just load it up. So we reduced the job descriptions, right? We introduced e-forms, Kanban systems for methodically roles and to move them through a process. We had weekly huddles. We produced scorecards for resourcing partners so that we could manage what their efficiency was and their productivity was for us. We reduced the handoffs along the way, and this was important because you got to remember these type of projects, they're almost like a manufacturing line, right? So getting people into those roles is almost like every time's a little bit different, but it's the same. So you can see how it really is attractive to lean systems, right? Or lean improvement, right? And so, as you saw, we reduced from 17 weeks to 14 weeks a typical mobilisation time. I mean, that's essentially that was the in-between part of the training still remained the same and so on, but this is we cut 3 weeks out by improving systems. We decreased some of the hiring managers' time significantly, so they got time back, and that improves their ability to work. That also, in the end, why you're doing it, you're hoping that people's lives will get better, right? We saved about 20,000 hours in productivity and achieved a 94% just-in-time onboarding success rate. And when we're talking about 160 people, right? Thereabouts, right? And we also, along the way, improved the scalability and the process efficiency of the systems. These are systems that now can be used globally, right? So the processes are there, the systems are there. So please do have a look at the case, have a reread of it. We put a lot of effort into it, and we're very glad that we did, right? One of the next one we talked about retention. It can be a bugbear if you spend so much time getting people in and they don't stay. And there's I don't even need to say, I mean, that's been selfish for me, but there's obviously the improvements of the camaraderie of the teams and so on. So we had, with lessons lean systems, there is always the things don't work exactly the way you wanted it the first time. So we started up a program the year before. It was called Employer Choice Program, and that was to look at how to improve retention on the site. Now, we reviewed that after a year, as you do with lean, reviewed and looked at some of the improvements that could be made, right? And we set pretty challenging goals to reduce the turnover from 20% the year before to 12%. We created a new charter. We looked at some of the weaknesses using an A3 of where were we going wrong, what could we improve to do it. We ended up making like a balanced scorecard approach, because everyone, like I said, everyone wants something different. Some people want a very nice office. Some people want good camaraderie. Some people want a career growth. Some people want more money. Some people want to be to enjoy the environment there. And for me, it could be just donuts, right? I like donuts, so maybe it's donuts that gets me going, right? And everyone wants something different. So we set up a system that was more tactile, in that every month one of those 5 pillars was attended to, whether it was career or whatever. And we used the plan, do, check, act. 1 month before we would plan it, and the next month we would do. And this allowed us to reduce now we can't say 100% reduced at all, but we did have a reduction that year. And it also allowed us to look at, we looked at in terms of the levers and the times of the year, and was there anything that was triggering it? It may be work anniversaries, it may be Christmas breaks or Easter breaks, when people have time to reflect. These are the sort of things. So we were more proactive in these sort of highlighted first, acknowledging, and then be more proactive, right? We also did another project on forecasting, right? So forecasting in the past, we had some outdated systems, and we're talking about very complex forecasting, right? So manufacturing line type forecasting for one of our clients. And so therefore it's week in, week out changes to schedule, impacts. So, you may have, we need someone in 12 weeks time, and all of a sudden the next week you need him in 8 weeks, and then the next week after you need him in 14 weeks, because the changes are so significant. And there was always a relayed feedback in terms of too many people were part of the process to get what's really happening on site in terms of demands on resources and demands on teams and demands on resourcing. So what we did is looked at the challenge of what forecasting in terms of top down, bottoms up, and we went away and did an A3 problem solving chart. Again, you can look at this article in 2024 Lean Book of Cases. And we looked at how we can streamline the process. We looked at getting the stakeholders on board. How did they, and when I was waiting on the information all the time, like for them, they would go, yep, good. But I would be just like, can we not get the information quicker? Because then I can even entice the clients, do we need more people? So the reality is what we did is we went back and using the A3, which is a great storybook type procedure, it allowed people to get buy-in, and they were more than willing to help and contribute to creating a forecasting tool which used P3 or P6 schedules, refined the actual demands on the requirements for all the different processes and systems, from mobilisation to from logistics to MIMO to move out to construction management to tool and store programs to construction management programs, off-site manufacturing, everything. It allowed me to understand very, very clearly exactly how many people I needed, when I needed them, and to give 6 weeks look ahead. Even during maintenance periods when the guys are working, I could see that program would be busy in 6 to 8, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. It allows you to take blasts and move people around and take the pressure off, so everyone's working more leveled, right? I would say, instead of, there's nothing worse than being a tea room and you're busy and you go on and there's guys chatting away, right? So it evens it up and it allows people, and with that also probably helps with retention, right? And what we did is, with this, we were able to get our forecasting, which could be done weekly, right, or every 2 weeks. The information comes weekly, to get it down to 30 days, almost a press to 30 minutes, almost a press of a button, where it would have taken 4 days and many, many stakeholders to do it, right? And this was great. And so one of the good things that take home from this was the storytelling to get people buy-in. But it is easy, because when I was out on site, the guys out there on that program that helped me build the forecasting model that we use Power BI with, is that there's almost 90 green belts and 5 black belts on that team. So you can see the enthusiasm for if you show them where they're going to add difference, where it is, and they'll follow along. And that would be one of the biggest lessons I learned we had, right? So what is some of the big takeaways we've had over the last 5 years, right? Our objective was to remove waste and systems, to streamline our role, justification, to all of a sudden now use strategic resourcing, have multiple stakeholders, multiple resourcing companies, let them do the work and let them be specialised in the area they're specialised in, centralised job specifications, process systems, automation, reduction time, and so on. So in the last 5 years, our mobilisation team, we've mobilised over 678 resources in Ireland and Malaysia programs alone, right? We have helped out along the way in Germany and the US as well. And I'm thinking there's more, but and in Italy and EPCM, right? So we've done 678 resources, and each one of them has been an improvement and a continuous improvement along the line, right? And with that, obviously we're saving costs along the way. We're allowing the hiring managers to do what they want to do and what they're trained to do, and so on, right? So what does it mean? I asked the question, what does it mean to executives and program managers, right? Essentially, as we're built up all the way through this, mobilisation is a critical link between the strategy and vision. We're planning, we're forward planning, we're helping the programs get their first day right? And so we're trying to remove risks along the way. Now, we've highlighted there related scarcity of resources as a big risk. Do you want to leave it to the hiring managers to deal with that, or do you want to know about what the environment's doing? Do you want to plan ahead? Do you want to make sure that even when the business development guys go in, that they're aware of the risks or get that involved early? This is the sort of thing that we can help the program managers do. Cost efficiency, budgetary controls. We know pretty much we can even improve, a bargaining power, right? Because if we have multiple agencies working for us, and we know how much everyone's charging, and we have lots of roles, and we know what the roles are, they're going to be supply and demand. They're going to want to bargain with us, right, to get the right roles, right? We program aligned with the organisation goals. We're quicker at getting people in. And one thing I would say also with sustainability, we're scaling the systems. We're improving that for the next person to come along and do this job, right? And but we've also improved the risk, So across, what have we become, right? So Maria and myself, and there's been others, and there's other managers, mobilisation managers abroad, what do we become? We become unmatched in expertise in terms of a deep understanding of construction mobilisation, right? We've also become tailored. We can measure results, we can change, we can adapt based on the program or the role. It could be a long-time design team. We can empower the programs for success. We can give them their strength. We can understand they know more about what the problems are when we're around, right? And we build up relationships continuously, bargaining power, like I just said there, in terms of how do you, working with different agencies, with different managers, with different executives, with different companies, right? How do you do this? But the most important thing is we're proactive risk management. We can allow systems, when we're talking about the biggest concerns people have, is the risk to the programs. You're looking at programs. I know companies are out there now not going for business development, not putting proposals into role for big projects because they can't get the people. That, with the right people are behind them and the right support and the right strength of team, they can at least be a part of the business development program and really let you know, well, there is an option out here. We could do this pretty quick, right? So that's some of the SMEs driving our lean strategies. What we've gained, become special matter experts in this, and I really like to thank you all for listening today. Right, I've enjoyed doing this because there's a bit of a synopsis of what we've done to date, and it allows us to understand what we're doing next. And so if you have any concerns or questions, I see I've got 5 minutes left, so 5 minutes for questions, that's great. But if I run out of time, please do send me your questions. I've got the LinkedIn there. Let's collaborate. You know, we're passionate about what we do, Maria and myself. You know, I see there my real passion outside mobilisation is skiing, off-piste skiing, and but we're passionate about what we do, and we're more than willing to discuss what we do if you have questions, right? So, yeah, I think that's my presentation. Thanks so much. I suppose questions.
Yeah, we're back to questions. Tim, that was great. Extremely interesting presentation. We have a room for 2 or 3 questions. We'll start off here. It would appear continuous improvement is a key philosophy Arcadis has embraced. Was it a challenge to gain the support of senior management to CI?
No, well, okay, no, it wasn't, because my manager or boss was Richard Casey, right? So in this case, again, like I said before, we Arcadis now, but in the DPS, we had a culture of continuous improvement, a very big culture of it. In fact, the reason I actually joined DPS in the first place is I saw Richard Casey at a Lean Construction Institute presentation one time, and I thought, geez, I like the way they acknowledge where there was challenges, but I really like the idea that you acknowledge it and then you can improve it. And for me, my biggest pain is the status quo. I can't stand it. You know, the big wheel keeps turning. If it doesn't improve, I don't want to be on board, right? So for me, no. Again, I suppose lean advocacy. The more of us, the better, right? And it's again storytelling. You know, I've tried to reflect today on executives for them to understand where can the value be, and I think it's just us creating a clear message. You know.
Absolutely, yeah. So the question here, we can squeeze in 2 more before we have to shut it down. What makes your mobilisation approach unique compared to traditional methods, and how does it support executives in achieving their business goals?
Yeah, well, okay. So that what makes us different is that we have a dedicated team, that can look at the risks, can engage the stakeholders, can pull the process. I mean, lean is about pulling the process. That's the most efficient way you can do it. And to have someone who's dedicated to pulling the process systematically, goes from next to the next to the next to the next to the next, it's much more efficient, right? Much more efficient. And it allows you to have SMEs then, and I just said there in the last slide, SMEs who actually can share information about what the market's doing, right? What rates should you be paying, and so on. Yeah. So that's different to a hiring manager as I talked about in the first place, the general consensus would be the hiring manager goes to an agency and has to deal with them all themselves. They're not SMEs in this sort of process.
Okay, perfect. If you have any more questions, I will forward them on to you from the attendees. Sincere thanks again to Tim for today's webinar presentation. Please note that a copy of this webinar will be sent out to everyone who attended. Information will be sent out shortly in relation to March's webinar. For information on this and other webinars, the annual conference, the annual back book of cases that Tim mentioned, and other LCR resources, please visit leanconstructionireland.ie and follow the Lean Construction Ireland LinkedIn group page. Finally, thank you to everyone who attended today, and we very much look forward to meeting you at a future Lean Construction Ireland webinar. Thanks again, Tim. That was brilliant.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Thank you.